All right, here we go. Next day of construction. So today's constructions involve lines where we make other lines that are perpendicular to the given line. And lastly, we'll make parallel lines. So here is your homework. Okay. As always, we're going to be using a straight edge and a compass, and we're going to be doing these things called constructions. And that's the entire chapter. So we'll be constructing things, and your job is to learn these constructions, be able to replicate the constructions. Remember, the constructions have both a number and a name. So, for instance, each one of these are going to have a number, but I'll, for test purposes, I'll say, make a perpendicular bisector to segment AC. It's probably the easiest chapter as long as you can follow instructions. There's only a few that are confusing. None of them today are that confusing. In fact, most of the ones today follow a similar pattern. All right. I don't know if extremely hard to remember is what I would use for most people, but for some people, they are very hard to remember. But remember, these can all be in your book of truth. Please don't let me do a step that you don't understand, so ask questions. Make sure the instructions themselves make sense to you, or instead of using my instructions, you can certainly write your own instructions as long as you follow along with what I do. All right, without further ado, let's do the first construction. So let me turn on my camera. Okay. Hope you can see that. And we're going to make a perpendicular bisector. Oh, actually, let's do this a different way. Let's look at the instructions first. Otherwise, you won't ever see the instructions. Here are the instructions. Okay, so to make a perpendicular bisectors, it's step 1 through 4. Go ahead and pause the video, write these down, and then start the video again, and I'll show you the actual construction. Okay, so here we go. So step number 1 says to open the compass to more than half of the length of the given segment. So what does that actually mean? It means if it turns out if you open it up to half or less, you can't do this construction. So does that mean you can open it up to more than half? It sure does. But your requirement is only a little bit more than half. So it's not that it makes it easier or harder if you open it up to more than the entire length. It's just not requirement. So I'm going to open it up to, I don't know, I'm just taking an eyeball. It's not because I think this is the distance that's perfect. It makes it easier. Let me get the cursor out of the way here. I'm just following along. Open it up to more than half. All right. And it says draw an arc from one of the endpoints. So either from endpoint A or from endpoint B. I'm going to draw an arc from one of the endpoints of the segment above and below the segment. So here's what it means. Pick A or B. Doesn't matter. I'll pick A. Put the pointy part on A, and I'm going to draw an arc above, and I'm going to draw an arc below. So it looks something like that. Now, I know that I'm going to have a perpendicular bisector, so it's going to be somewhere in the middle. So I just want to make sure my arc is directly above where roughly the middle is, say above and below, okay? Now, here's the key on step number 2. Step number 2 says without changing. So if you have a crummy compass and you've just changed that distance, you got to make it back to the original distance, okay? So without changing this distance, we're going to do the same thing, but to the other point. So I put the point on B this time, and now I make an arc above, and notice it immediately intersects. That's what we're really looking for. And then the same thing below, where do they intersect? So that's step number 2. Step number 3 says take your straight edge and play connect the dots. So what am I connecting? I'm connecting the intersection of these two arcs and the intersection of these two arcs right here. And once you have that drawn, you have now a perpendicular bisector. It says to label. So let's see if it's perpendicular. It needs a right angle. And if it's bisecting, it just bisected AB. I need a tick mark and a tick mark. And there you go. That first construction there is called construction number 4. Make a perpendicular bisector. Not too bad. All right, let's go back to the next construction. So this is the next construction. This one has also has 4 steps. Okay. I'm setting up right here. Here we go. Back to the document camera. All right, here we go. All right, let's see. What does step number one says? Step number one says open the compass to a radius. It just says any radius. All right, so let me explain what it means. So I've got a point C, and C is between points A and B. So I'm going to open up my compass to at least as large, not larger, than the shorter of the two sides. CB is smaller than AC, so I can open it up to any distance as long as it's not larger than CB, the smaller of the two. And do I have to be exactly C to B? I don't. My goal here is to make an arc to the left and to the right of point C. So without changing the distance, I'm going to put it on C, and I'm going to make an arc to the right and to the left. So just like that. And if you think about what I just did, I just now made, because remember, a compass has the same, it's a radius. So therefore, I just made C the middle of these two arcs right here. And the rest of the construction will now be done exactly like the previous one. So step number two says open up the compass to a radius larger than the distance from the point to one of the arcs. So it needs to be, and this is that half distance again. So it needs to be larger than half of the entire distance between arc to arc. So I don't know, maybe that's fine. Okay. All right, now it says, let's see, it says from this point right here, from either the arc line intersection. So either from this intersection or this intersection, draw an arc above and below. So from this point right here, I'm going to draw an arc above and below C. And we're trying to make a perpendicular, not a bisect, but a perpendicular through a B that goes through point C. And then without changing this distance, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm trying to do this accurately. So arc above, arc below, check it out. And then the last step, or second to last step, step three, I'm going to join this intersection and this intersection. And if I've done it correctly, it's going to go through point C. Now, here's what I do. I usually put my pencil on the intersection and then push the straight edge up to the pencil. And that way I know I'm perfectly lined up. And then I'm going to move the bottom. I'm pivoting against the pencil, move the bottom till it lines up with the bottom two intersections, and notice it goes right through C. It says label is last step, so let's see, that's perpendicular, but notice I can't put tick marks. CB is not the same as AC. I just made it perpendicular. So all those proofs that we did where it said make a perpendicular, well, that's how it's done right there. All right, let's see what the next construction is. So the next construction is, point C is going to be above the line. It could be below as well, too. You just flip it upside down. All right, so let me set up for that one. This is a organizational challenge here. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't show you the steps. So here are the steps. There's 4 of them again. You're going to feel like these are the same constructions over and over again. They're just slight modification, like one step is different. Okay, so there's my line AB. C is now no longer on the line, and I'm going to make a perpendicular line that goes through C that's perpendicular to AB. All right, so here's my goal. I'm going to pretend that C is on the line right here and make an arc right to the right and to the left, just like the previous thing. So I just need to open up my compass. This is step 1. Open up my compass. I'm trying to get this to look nice. Open up my compass so I can make an arc to the left and to the right. So if I were to open it up too large, like say like that big, and I tried to put my point on C, I wouldn't be able to put an arc on the line. So the actual distance needs to be smaller so that I can put an arc there and flip it around and put an arc right there. So I made an arc. And basically, once again, all I've done is now put C in the middle between these two arc distances. And then the rest of the construction is done the same way. So imagine now we're on to step 2. Imagine now that these two arc intersections right here is the entire segment. So we're supposed to open this up to what, more than half? All right, so there's more than half. So from this intersection or this intersection, we're going to be making arcs. All right, so from both arc line intersection points, draw arcs on the opposite side of the line. So C is right here. So I'm going to put arcs over here. Oh, by the way, if you put the arcs up here, it would work as well too. It's just that it's easier, less messy to put them down below. So I have a distance that's bigger than half of this distance right here. So I put it on that point right there. I'm going to draw arcs below this time. I could draw them above just to show you. I don't have to draw them above. And then do the same thing right here. So I'm going to do distance below. And the reason why I don't need to do both above and below, because I've already got another point to line up. But if you'd like to do it above, whoop, you didn't see anything there. There we go. You could also do it above. The instructions don't say above and below. All right, so I'm going to put my pencil lead on C. I'm going to push my straight edge up to C and then move the bottom to line up with this arc intersection down here. There we go. And then straight down. I don't actually have to go. I can if I want to go below, because all I'm doing is making a perpendicular. Step 4 says to label. So there we go. I made it perpendicular through C to line AB. And we've done that a lot of times on many, many, many proofs where we've done that. Hey, that was 3 quick constructions. We've only got 1 left. Let's see what the last one is. There's always one that's more challenging than the others. So this is the one. So this is, I mean, I'm using the word complicated. I don't know how complicated it is. So remember, I'm only going to show you this once. Well, you do have the videos to review over and over and over again, but I'm only going to show it to you once. Make sure you're reading the instructions and you understand the instructions. Occasionally I get kids that are a little bit hung up on this particular one. All right, so let me do the final setup. Here are the steps. So there are 7 steps to this one. And remember, you're supposed to pause the video now, write down the steps. All right, so here's the setup. I'm going to make a line that is parallel to AB that goes through point C. So a line that's parallel to AB that goes through point C. So step number 1, it says from A, draw a line that goes from A through C. Now, it doesn't say how far out you need to go, and I would just say, well, however long your straight edge is, unless it's like you're using a yardstick or something like that, make it as long as you can. Well, there we go. So I drew from A through C. That's step 1. If you just go a little bit, you're going to see that you run into problems. So make it as long as you can. Should I go all the way out to here? Well, I guess you can, but make a reasonable distance. All right, step number 2, basically this construction now turns into, let's see, what was this? Construction number 2, make a congruent angle. If you notice, I've got an angle right here. You see this angle, CAB? I'm going to copy this angle and place it right here with C as the vertex. So if you remember that construction, step number 1 is I make an arc from point A through the 2 legs of the angle. And it doesn't say how large to make it. So if I try to make this arc really, really, really large, and then the next step is to transfer it to the point C, there's nothing to draw through. So just make sure that whatever distance you're opening up your compass, let's say I open up this distance, that I would also be able to go through this new segment that I just made. All right, let me do that step and I'll describe it again for you. So I'm going to open it up to a distance. I mean, it could be really, it could be this small. When you do it that small, it ends up being not very accurate. Larger is better. So I'm going to open it up to a specific distance, or not a specific distance for this construction, but for one unique distance. So that's my distance. I'm not going to change it. That's step number 2. Open the compass to a radius from point A, draw something that intersects the 2 legs of the angle. And then step 3 says, without changing this, I'm going to repeat that process to here. Notice that if I had opened this up any further, I wouldn't go through line AC, but now I did go through line AC. And let's see, how did I know how long to make that arc? Well, here's what your goal is. Your goal is to make this arc and this arc look pretty similar, because If you can imagine, the line is going to go through point C. It would also have to intersect this arc. So if we were to stop the arc right there and then eventually draw the line through C, we wouldn't go through that arc. Okay. So long story short, however long you make this arc, make this one at least that long or a little bit longer. Okay, so that was step number 3. Without changing the radius, draw a similar arc from the given point C right there. Okay, that's step 3. All right, step number 4 is basically I'm going to measure this intersection to this intersection. I should be pointing with my pencil. How about that? From this intersection to this intersection, I'm going to measure the distance with my compass. So let's see, measuring that distance. This is easy to do with a good compass. All right, I put the point on that and I move this until I get that precise distance right there. So that's the distance from here to here. Okay. This is step number 4. So step number 5, without changing that, I'm going to draw that arc on that new distance onto this intersection right here down to here. So this was the distance right here. So I'm going to put the point up here and then draw that intersection like that. So that's step number 5. Without changing the radius, draw that new intersection. So from here to here. And all you're basically doing is repeating this process of that right there. So that was the distance from here to here. You're just doing the same thing over there. Now I have a point C. I have an intersection. So step 6 is draw a line that goes through C through that intersection right there. So I'm going to put my point on, or my pencil lead on that intersection. I'm going to move this until I get there and draw this through C. And there we go. There is my line that is parallel to AB that goes through point C right there. Label, let's see, how do we label parallel lines? We put little triangles on the line itself. And there we go. Those 2 lines are parallel. Make sense? Doing this would just, or making a video of this just by doing the constructions, obviously. This is a pretty quick class because nobody's there to ask questions. So if you run into problems with any of these steps, and like I said, you need to make sure that you're reading the steps when I do this construction, and make sure that, because I wrote these steps, there are steps written in the book as well too. I find them not to be descriptive enough, so I've rewritten the steps hopefully to make it make more sense. If that's not the case, make sure you ask questions. And believe it or not, that is it for today. So the rest of, I'll show you the homework one more time. So the rest is just the homework. Hopefully you're having fun with the constructions because they're always kind of fun. All right, that'll do it for today's class. Good luck. I will see you on the next class.